How's it going, Laser Bruce's up? I'll be Sixkilla. Welcome back to Choices That Matter, and the sun went out. So we have just discovered that exists this non-physical plane, and the worthy sacrifice is a bridge between planes or something along those lines, and that the Aetheryte and Children of Gaia, despite the fact that they hate each other, have the same origin. That pretty much sums it up. Wong and Satine gave Chase a shady look. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, Chase grinned. We don't know for sure what it all means yet. It's interesting to be sure, Etienne muttered. What's more interesting is why my father knew anything about it. I sometimes wonder how Sol knew half the things he knew, I admitted. His brain worked at least 4 times faster than mine. I wish I could have met him, Matron added. Seems like just the kind of person we need in this situation. Yeah, Etienne grunted, standing to move away from the group. It'd be swell if he was here. He walked away and we watched him leave. Vardic raised an eyebrow. We've all lost people recently, I murmured. Let's not dwell on it right now. There was a scattering of agreement throughout the group and we all settled back down to our meal. By morning, the astronauts had come back to us with a timeline. 3 days. That's quicker than I expected, I muttered to Sharon once they left. Well, they said that the previous establishment had been gearing up for launch, she shrugged. Maybe they were nearly set before they bailed. Then why not launch, I asked, frowning. Why not just do it? What's wrong with the shuttle? Don't put that thought in my head, Chase laughed, coming up behind me. I'm the one going up there. I'm just thinking logically, it wouldn't be bad to double check. I've already thought of that, Chase laughed. No harm, no foul. He reached past me and picked up a blowtorch before walking away again. Well done, Sharon muttered, chuckling. I'm sure he feels better now. Don't push it, I sighed. I'm trying to keep it together as best I can here. Sure. We stood in silence for a moment, drinking water out of our bottles. We'd been piling logs all morning and we were taking a short break. Teacher, I have bad news. I don't think we have 3 days. What? What do you mean? I've been keeping my ear to the ground. I think we're about to be under attack. By who? Panic started taking me over and I flagged down Dolores. It must have shown in my expression because she hot-footed it over with a grim look on her face. Moti, what proof? Sharon asked harshly. The local station reported a group of people moving through the town. They described it as an angry mob. They're also heading this way. Keep working, get everyone set up and ready. Satine, get the reinforcements ready. Dolores thundered back from the walkway above. Moti must have tipped her off as well. We're getting the shuttle ready for launch, no matter what. She looked over the building. By now, we'd garnered the attention of many of our friends standing around. Dolores' expression darkened. Get back to work. We have a few hours left of uninterrupted work, so make it count. Everyone started running in each direction, and I looked back to Sharon, alarmed. I don't want anyone else to die, I whispered. I know, she calmed me, but to save the world, we have to make an omelette. She clapped me on the shoulder and took off, out of the door, calling for Satine. Teacher, I don't think that's how the saying goes. Maybe she had a stroke. No, I think it's a very Australian way of saying that. Saying, I muttered, shaking my head. Crank appeared beside me. What can I do, boss? Shouldn't you be asking Dolores? The way I see it, Dolores is deferring to you, so that makes you boss, he shrugged, looking around shiftily. As long as I don't have to be in that shuttle, I'm happy. Well, alright then, I muttered. I promise I won't make you go to space. Much obliged. I thought for a second. Go to Satine. Get her anything she needs. If she doesn't need you... What? He asked dryly, noting the green look on my face. Take what ammo you have and set up a nest, up there. I pointed at one of the balconies with a window. Don't forget your rocket launcher. Aye, Captain, he nodded, eyes narrowing as he scoped the location. I think I got a scope that might work nicely as well. I nodded, not really listening. There wasn't anything I could do about getting the shuttle ready, but I could stop this from being a bloodbath. If I could stop this from being a bloodbath, I would. Crank moved away and I turned to Moti. Moti, how far away is the news report you mentioned? Are you asking how long we have, teacher? Because it's not clear. Yes, Moti, that's what I mean, please. You need to be crystal clear in the situation, teacher. There's too much on the line. I estimate they'll be here tomorrow afternoon. 2 days, give or take. More than give, I suspect. More take than give, I suspect. I ran over to the ladder and climbed to where Chase was. He had headphones on, and he was using the blowtorch with purpose. I tapped him on the shoulder and stood back. "What's up?" he asked, turning off the torch and raising his protective helmet. "Is there anything that we can do to speed up the 3-day timeline?" I asked, out of breath. Why?" "You didn't hear Dolores," I sighed, rubbing my face. "We're gonna have company real soon. Tomorrow evening at the latest." He stood, eyes wild. "That's not enough time. We need more than that to launch." "That's why I'm asking, Chase," I said calmly. It had the effect on him that I'd hoped, and he took a few steady breaths. It takes time to calculate all the variables on the flight systems. I can try to speed it up by looping in a second system, but I'd have to go out on one of the outer buildings." I thought it over. "Do it, but as soon as things get dicey, come back here." "Right," he nodded. "Right. I'll let one of the astronauts know they need to finish this up. It'll only take them 15 minutes. I've done most of the grunt work." "Good lad." He put the torch down and took off the protective gear, double timing it to get down the ladder. Instead of following him, I made my way along to where Dolores was with her laptop. You need anything?" I asked, kneeling next to her. "More time," she snapped. "Miss Montague, teacher cannot do that. You have to adjust to the situation you're given." Dolores' face turned red, and I held my hands to ward her off. "Hey, Moti has a mind of their own, remember? What can I help with?" She took a deep breath of her own and closed her eyes. On her computer screen were reports of large purchases, billions of dollars large. "The company has been buying up countries," she said finally, turning back to her keyboard. "Only small ones so far, and usually by pseudonym names. But if they aren't stopped, they can start a civil war across the Americas." "Well, what can we do?" I asked, frowning. As far as I knew, this wasn't our most pressing matter. "Moti was able to breach their firewalls and siphon out money, right?" she asked. I nodded. "Well, then we need to do that again. Leave Moti with me." "No, I must remain with teacher. Besides, I can't get back in anymore." "Vardik," I cut him before Dolores could speak. "He's a world-class hacker. We could get him to look into it." "He's doing the heavy lifting for Satine," Dolores said. "I'm not sure what's more important." "Call him over now. Satine has others helping her." "I'll do that," Dolores nodded, picking up the radio by her leg. I left her to it and descended the ladder again. It felt like the amount of people within the Cosmodrome had doubled with all the activity, but alas, it wasn't true. "We need more help," I muttered, looking around. "There just isn't enough of us." "What can I do, teacher? I want to help." "You are helping, Moti, simply by being here with me." "That's sweet, but a complete fallacy. I'm doing nothing." "You do more than you know," I muttered, pacing to the door to look out. Satine was giving orders, and Etienne drove past on a quad bike as I watched. "You warned us that danger is coming, and you constantly provide advice and comfort. If I didn't have you on my wrist telling me what to do, I would never have made it this far." "Can I provide another piece of advice then?" "You're gonna do that even if I say no anyway, so shoot." "Teacher, there may not be much time left. If you have feelings for Miss Sharon or Mr. Etienne, you should tell them soon. If this goes wrong, you might not get another chance. Man, he's obsessed with this." "Don't have time for that, Moti. Come on." We worked tirelessly over the next 24 hours. Dolores was on water and foot duty, making sure that everyone was ready for anything, and I'd started taking my bike between each group to do as much as I could to help anyone, really. At 10 in the morning, a hatchback drove down the road toward us. It was done. I was alone, so... It was alone, but I kept our guard up. I still can't English. "I got it in my sights," Crank buzzed over the radio on my belt. "If they try anything, I'll shoot out their tires." "Don't," Etienne shouted back. "I recognize them. They're friendly." I picked up the radio and pushed the button to talk. "Etienne, you get up here then. Who is it?" "It's Mother, and there's a kid in the car with her." Borrowing a pair of binoculars, I looked through it. I recognized the boy. It was Umi, the Egyptian boy I'd met in the train in Turkey. The boy who had accurately predicted the darkness coming and going. I frowned. This was no situation for a child to be in. They pulled up beside me and I immediately told them to drive to the main building, where they'd be safe, flanking them on the bike. Umi tumbled out of the car as soon as they were parked. "I found you again, Moti." "Master Umi, I'm so happy to see you." "Mother," Etienne called as he arrived, "what are you doing here? Why have you brought the boy?" "It was Umi and his adopted mother who found me first," Umi said. "He had to be here. Etienne's mother explained before introducing herself as Amala. He even ran away when I tried to stop him. His adopted mother stayed behind though. Why'd you need to come here, Umi? I asked, kneeling to be at his eye height. What's so important? The darkness is coming back, he whispered, taking my wrist and holding Moti close to his chest. I almost forgot about the mysterious bond Umi and Moti shared. I only had a glimpse of it in the train before we were separated. The sadness is overwhelming, and this time, light will not return, Umi continued. It's only a few days away now. Alright. Amala, take Umi up the ladder and bunker down. We're expecting company. Amala, Etienne's mother, had to drag Umi by his arm to get him to leave the small group who had formed around him. I made sure that Moti was still on my wrist, just in case. Etienne, Sharon and Dolores looked to me, worry in their eyes. Hey, we knew this was coming, I said, my own voice hoarse. It doesn't change our plan, or what we have to do. Teacher is right. I'm not sure why you're all upset. This is data we already had. It's because it's so close, Moti, I hushed. Moti is right, Dolores said, sniffing and standing straight. Now more than ever we have to remain on track. I'll start pulling people back, behind the line. She strutted off, leaving me and my companions alone. Sharon looked up to where Umi and Amala sat on the balcony with Crank. Doesn't seem right, she whispered, a child being here. Not so close to... Sharon shook her head sharply. Excuse me, I have to make a call. She wandered away and pulled out her phone. I turned to Etienne, but he held up his hand, as if knowing I was going to say something. We don't know how to stop this, he said defeatedly. We have no clue, so please, spare me the reassurances. Then Etienne walked away too, leaving me by myself. Moti vibrated and I looked down. The enemy is close, teacher. You won't get another chance. Tell them how you feel. Okay, let's try our luck with Sharon, shall we? Now's the time, teacher, before all is lost. I swallowed. It was ridiculous, the world ending around me and I felt like I was in high school. I walked over to Sharon and she thumbed her phone, unable to call Chrissy. She'd been so carefree when I met her, and so very Australian. She was brash, brutally honest, and always had a wicked twinkle in her eye. She saved my life, and I hers several times. Her skills at driving were unrivaled. And her undying loyalty, not just to myself, but to Chrissy as well, was totally unique. Alright, let's tell Sharon how you feel. Swallowing, I walk over to Sharon, touching her shoulder. Hey, I murmured, everything okay? Yeah, she laughed half-heartedly. Just tried to call Chrissy, but it didn't work. I'm sure she's fine. There were tears in her eyes and it broke my heart. I reached forward to hug her. She fell into my shoulder and sobbed while I held her tightly. I just want to be a good mother, you know, she asked. I just wanted to be safe and know that she's loved. She knows that, I hushed her, stroking her hair. You've done so much to protect her. She knows how much you love her and that you do anything to protect her. After a few moments she straightened, wiping the tears from her eyes. Thank you. Yes, I suppose she does. Sharon reached forward and patted my shoulder where there was a damp patch. Now I've covered you in snot. I'm sorry. Don't worry about it, I'm here for you, right? She smiled, touching my cheek. I know. I'm so glad you are. I don't know what I'd do without you. You don't have to find out, Shaz, or I hesitated. Oh my god, these are both very strong. Very strong. I think I love you, let's go with that one. We've got company, Crank roared over the side suddenly, and not the good kind. Sharon and I looked at each other, filled with dread. We ran over to the door to get a better look. Etienne joined us. Go tell the others and be safe. I raced out the door as I made for the ladder, leading up to Crank's camp. He was readying a rocket launcher, a stony look on his face. He transformed himself into Soldier Crank, and there wasn't a tremble in his movements. I grabbed his scope and looked through it. The road was full, both of people and automobiles. There was a group near the front dressed in military uniforms carrying military-issued weapons. They were organized and were led by a commander. They had bigger guns than us. Seems like the Russian military's taken offense to us camping here, Crank muttered, taking back the scope and lining up a shot. And the company, Dolores puffed, appearing behind us. She touched my shoulder to move me to the side and pointed. That group there? They're one of ours. Theirs, I mean. The company decided they wanted revenge after all, I muttered. The group Dolores had pointed at was another tight-knit group, tactical and well-formed. They don't want to appear weak. They can't just have anyone stealing jets and money, Crank muttered. Amongst the two organised groups were random citizens, ragged and angry. Some I recognised from the road on the way to Vostochny. The gangs that had formed separately had come together to battle against a single foe. Us. Mob mentality had set in. We're totally screwed, Crank muttered before firing the first rocket. Arc 13 completed. 2 left. 36%. Lovely. Time for Arc 14. With a deafening boom, the rocket launcher Crank launched zoomed toward the first incoming tank. You missed, I cried, watching it hit just the front of the vehicle. No, he didn't, Dolores muttered, wincing. The tank trembled and then became stuck in the ditch the rocket had created. Crank cried with excitement and began loading another. Looking down, I saw our people scrambling. I have to get everyone inside, I yelled, making my way back down the ladder. Outside, Sharon and Etienne were leading the pack and getting everyone in position. A group of armed rebels came into sight and I panicked. I was about to yell for Sharon before realizing I'd only make both of us an easier target. A heavy weight hit me in the stomach and I fell backwards onto the ground, gasping in pain. Shh, said Sharon. She'd crash tackled me to the ground. I nodded and grabbed her hand, pressing it to my lips. Nothing like getting shot at to make a new relationship feel the most natural thing in the world. I slowed my breath and listened, trying to hear the small sounds between gunshots and my own ragged breath. I heard the careful movement as Sharon crept away from me toward the guns. Let's do this. As we carefully shifted positions with the noisy leaf litter, we heard more gunshots and screaming coming from the direction of our friends, and then the sound of someone yelling in Chinese. That voice was coming our way and quickly. My stomach wrenched, wondering if we were surrounded, even though our vantage point had only spotted the one attacking front. A moment later I recognized Wong's voice. It was him, and he was running toward us, waving his hands. Sharon grabbed a rock in each hand and ran toward Wong and toward the people shooting at us. I ran after her, grabbing a stick just so I wasn't completely empty-handed. After a few steps I heard another barrage of bullets and Wong screamed in pain. The two of us hit the ground a second time. The gunfire was coming from both in front of us and behind. Let's look for Wong. I crashed forward toward the first of where the outbuildings were, scrambling along the ground wherever I fell, trying not to think I might be about to die. Sharon was right beside me. I slipped and fell onto something that wasn't gravel or debris. It was Wong. He was clutching his arm, blood seeping from his shoulder where a bullet wound pulsed. Wong, I gasped, leaning next to him. Hit the deck, he wheezed. Look around for enemies. Still concerned that we may have been followed, I ducked around the corner to peer out the window. An explosion detonated, the bright flash causing me to go temporarily blind. Teacher? It's not advisable to look directly at a bright and sudden light. That'll slow them down, Wong wheezed, sounding weaker than before. We need to get you back to safety, I muttered, reaching blindly for him. He grabbed my arm. Moti, guide me back. I can't see. Moti led us back toward the launch site, telling us to wait when people came too close and run when the path was clear. Moti's hearing was a beautiful thing. When we got closer, Vardik ran out from the closest barricade and helped me with Wong, taking him back to the building. Inside, Matron was also sitting on the ground, cradling her leg, which also had blood seeping from it. Shot too, I asked, dismayed. My own fault, she winced. I stepped out from cover at the wrong time. I looked around, anxiety ratcheting higher. If we were surrounded, then many of these people would die, particularly if we couldn't get the rocket ready for launch. You guys shouldn't be here, I muttered, dismayed. Had I signed a death warrant to all my friends? Moti's right, Matron said, fumbling as she loaded a fresh clip into one of the guns beside her. Reloading must be how she was helping. This is where the sun is won or lost. Where else would we want to be at such a time? Moti, I repeated dully. My sense of unease was rising sharply, and I suddenly realized outside and around us had fallen silent. Something's happening, I whispered. Tell the others to fall back into the launch building immediately. Leave everything except guns. We may have to make a break for it when we see a chance. Amala joined us, holding bandages, and shook her head. Reinforcements, she was smiling. I noticed for the first time that she had a remoticon device. Had Moti been communicating with hers this whole time? Or was that one on Umi's wrist? Who? I said through gritted teeth. Who's coming? Can they be trusted? Are they armed? She shrugged as best she could, while cleaning Wong's wound. Everyone's coming. Moti called them, just like us. Moti, I growled. Don't worry, teacher. I've taken care of everything. It's gonna be alright. Who exactly is everyone? Surprise! Don't tell me it's the Mafia again. No, I said, no more surprises. This isn't a game, Moti. What have you done? Please scan from a vantage point so I can view our latest additions via your contact lenses. It is important that I know who is approaching, just in case. For a furious moment I considered simply closing my eyes, then I obeyed Moti, going to the window and making a sweep of the road heading toward the building and the dirt roads that dead-ended in the forest. Amala reluctantly left me with just Sharon, who was armed now, I noticed, and Etienne let the others know not to shoot unless Moti or I shouted that we were under attack. Don't shoot me, Etienne. I'm no bear, came a woman's voice. She had a French accent and seemed to know Etienne, but I couldn't see who she was. Then the mayor of Flying Fools stepped out from between the trees, and Etienne sagged beside me with shock and relief. Denise, he said? Me, Denise, but... Before he could finish speaking, dozens more people came around the front of the building, grinning shyly and keeping their range of hunting rifles and sawn-off shotguns pointed at the ground. Those at the rear immediately formed a perimeter, firing off new rounds of warning shots, which were immediately answered from our attackers. "You saved our town," Mayor Denise said proudly. "Memories of us putting out fires with the townspeople of Flying Falls filled my mind. So here we are, in Russia. Just don't show us any large hairy men because we tend to trank bears on instinct." The man stood so quietly before us that I wasn't sure if I saw a real person or was just jumping at shadows. Then Etienne jerked forward, as if he'd been pulled on a string. "Pierre!" he cried, and the two embraced, babbling away in French. Sharon elbowed me in the ribs. "Where's the tall glass of chocolate milk?" "Etienne's ex," I said, feeling very much like I was stating the obvious. "He's a security guard at Flying Falls." "Ah," she said. "Well, it seems everyone that matters to Etienne is here." Except his father, I thought, but I didn't say it aloud. I missed Professor Sol with a sudden sharp pain. "Is this good, teacher? Are you surprised?" "Yes, Moti, I'm very surprised." I was extremely uncomfortable with Moti bringing more innocent people into our battle, but it was true that we needed all the help we could get. I have a bad feeling we'll be buying our way out of the battle at the cost of more lives. Dolores moved from group to group, making sure they knew who she was, and that each mini-group had their own radio to receive commands. I wondered exactly how the new additions had arrived in the middle of nowhere. Moti had led them in, but I had no idea. I could see Dolores shooting glances at me. She needed me to step up and take the lead, but I didn't know how. "Moti," I hissed, "how did you guide the hair so accurately? I thought we were surrounded." "You were correct, teacher. We were blocked off on 3 sides. The Russian military had set up a local network for reliable communication, and they're calling the shots with the smaller groups. They're not yet aware that I'm using their own network to rearrange their troops." "I see," I said, wondering how long such a useful trick could last. "Please continue to monitor them closely." "Yes, teacher." "Mum?" Sharon's face dropped in pure shock. "Chrissy?" A blonde woman hurtled from the trees and formed a vortex of blonde with her mother. They looked remarkably alike, and I managed not to say so in front of Chrissy. A man with an air of long-suffering fondness materialized beside me, greeting me with a melodic Spanish accent and telling me to call him Matthias. This, then, was Chrissy's partner. I wondered briefly who was minding their kids, but even with Moti's expert misdirection through the launch site, I was glad they were nowhere nearby. Sharon held her daughter back so she could look at her properly. Her face shone with pleasure despite her situation. She dragged Chrissy over to me, collecting Matthias at the way, and introduced us with a curious and entirely nonsensical formality. "Thank you for coming. I'm sure you'll enjoy the party, and you may die." While Chrissy and Matthias had a high-speed family reunion with Sharon, I noticed Scoot approaching me. "What is it?" I asked him. "We have a problem," he said. Obviously the Russian did speak English. Perhaps they just didn't trust me before? "You're right. We need to get out of here before they realize Moti's given them their orders." "It's not that," he said. "It's the moon. It moved significantly during the 3rd sun outage. We have to recalibrate everything. Timing, trajectory, fuel, oxygen requirements, everything." "The moon moved?" I struggled to accept the bad news, as another barrage of gunfire pockmarked the first layer of barricades. It wouldn't hold much longer. I had to get my people back behind the second layer. Scoot winced, obviously not used to the violence, and yelling over the increasing noise. "The calculations will take time. If we don't get them right, we may as well give up now." "Where do we start?" Our head astronaut took a deep breath and visibly calmed himself, flinching as a lucky bullet hit the wall behind him. "I'm a physicist, among other things," he said. "I can work out certain things, but I need help, and I need more than just bean-checking my statistics." "Chase," I said. "He's one of the children of Gaia. He has a bunch of engineering qualifications. Could he help?" His forehead cleared. Yes, together we could do it. He scowled again. But we need to input the data through the new Russian intranet as well. I can enter the codes. I'm an excellent hacker. Hold on there, Moti. If we're splitting up, I want you to be with me if at all possible. Do we have another hacker? Oh yes, teacher. Mr. Vardak is an excellent hacker as well as a native Russian. So he speaks Russian and English fluently. That's good, said Bean. That's very good, but the intranet... I shrugged my ignorance at him, but it was Moti who answered. Teacher, the new intranet is reliable and extremely useful, but Mr. Bean's team will need to stay within range of the signal. Oh, I said. Where would that be? Within range, I mean. The outer buildings, where we can connect to the Ethernet cables. I groaned, realizing exactly what that meant. We need to stay here. We need to defend the launch buildings, no matter what. No, said Bean, not all of you. Just enough to draw off a platoon of soldiers if necessary, and another group to actually fuel the rocket, after we figure out exactly how much fuel is needed. He looked away, embarrassed. We both knew we'd be sending people to their deaths. Even Moti was silent, but the endless gunfire didn't stop. We need two distinct groups of people, I said, struggling to focus on anything other than staying in cover and not getting shot. People who can fight. Moti, you have a better idea of skills than I do. Who do we have? I don't like this, teacher. Neither do I. Tell me who we have, either here or coming soon, and I'll make the decisions. Yes, teacher. Shall I include the children of Gaia and the Aetherites? No, I said. Their knowledge is too valuable. Besides, how many are left? Portugal chapter of the Children of Gaia that Miss Farah brought to us, including Mr. Chase. Then we have the Chinese chapter of the Aetherites, including Mr. Wong and Miss Satine. I bit my lip, knowing Satine's knowledge of guerrilla fighting meant she'd have to be part of our front line sooner or later. I vowed it would be later and hoped Chase would be able to forgive me if she died. The Peruvian Children of Gaia are also here, including Ariel. I felt ill for a moment, remembering the flower-covered bier under Curator temple in Cusco, where Sharon's historian friend had willingly given his life in a desperate attempt to bring back the sun, and Ariel and the other Peruvian Children of Gaia had helped to kill him. I thought her savage at the time, despite her obvious grief. Now I understood her desperate act better than I ever wanted to. Miss Farah's daughter, Aurora, will arrive shortly, along with her guardian. Moti, no, I said. This is no place for children. She and Umi will be best friends. I was appalled at the thought of the sensitive Egyptian orphan being put in danger and immediately looked up to where he was sitting with Crank in his vantage point. Somebody nearby screamed in pain as one of the bullets found her. Moti, someone was just shot. I know, teacher. Dolores' wound is unlikely to be fatal. She has already bandaged it and is shooting back. That's good, but I don't want a child getting shot, fatally or otherwise. Neither do I, teacher. Aurora and Umi understand things. They'd be badly hurt no matter where they went. I shook my head, but I didn't need to say a word. I hated acknowledging it, but I knew Moti was right. Aurora is safe in town, but I've lost communication with them. Keep the children safe, Moti, no matter what. Yes, teacher. I hoped I'd done enough, but I couldn't help feeling uneasy. Wong was already shot, and we'd only just started. What about the Aetherites? I asked Moti, dreading the answer. How many are left? Mr. Wong, Miss Satine, and the others from the jet. Susan is far too old to fight, but she's very clever. I felt perversely glad at the thought of seeing Susan again, even if I might have helped save her life back in Flying Falls, secret Aetherite tunnels, only to see her lose it in Russia. Thank you, Moti. Of course Satine is the only fighter among the Aetherites. She'll defend Chase's position, whether I ask her to or not, I suspect, but who can stand guard with her, and who can get close enough to refuel the rocket? I was briefly distracted as the crowd of Japanese people arrived, the friendly Miki and her geologist, Dr. Marigold, and her eavesdropping sociologist, the teenage pop star, Akio, who had saved the lives of so many scientists by hosting them at his parents' mansion, and even Dr. Carmen Wales, who was from Peru, but I'd met in Japan. I risked a wave as someone herded them toward Matron. She handled them before, she could handle them again. Then I ducked as bullets flew my way. The soldiers were closer than ever. I chewed my lower lip and thought. The crew had to refuel the rocket. Would need subtlety rather than force. If they were seen, they were dead either way. Once the mass was done, Satine would need to be part of that crew. She had the skills and the smarts for it. Behind me, people continued to sort themselves into new combinations of people, ducking bullets and exchanging pot shots with the enemy. I recognized numerous scientists associated with Petrus. It made me sad to think of his beautiful castle in Indonesia where so many intellectuals had gathered in safety for a while. Teacher, have you decided who will refuel the rocket yet? Assign Mayor Denise and the Flying Falls town people with refueling the rocket. Sure. I had absolutely no idea if I'd made the right choice, but I did know the astronauts would probably miss the moon altogether if I'd chosen incorrectly. It was hard to think straight with bullets flying past. I turned and saw more allies from all around the world. Genevieve, the angry biker and kidnapper from Australia, who was giving steady cover alongside her long-lost brother and several other people who had a reason to hate the company. It was strange to think we were truly on the same side now, or perhaps not strange at all. Seeing Henrietta surprised me more than most. Elderly, widowed cat ladies who happened to be brilliant night photographers weren't generally in high demand on the battlefield, even if her thermos of tea was very welcome. I was pretty sure that it was tea she was passing around back there. We need to talk to someone about joining the battle, teacher. Who? I asked. Surely every single person I met along the way had now miraculously shown up to fight for us, regardless of their level of fighting experience. Who would I need to talk to now? Amala, Etienne's mother. She could be quite useful in this battle. She should stay with Umi. Umi is very brave, and we need her. The mother who left Etienne with just Professor Soul to raise him, I said. The one who never sought him out, yet kept control of his tracking device. Really? Yes, teacher. She is intelligent, and she cares for Etienne. I heard her calling, Etienne, over here. We all turned and saw her. She looked as if she'd been crying, although she wasn't visibly injured. I saw her put a small device in her pocket, and knew she'd used it to track Etienne. Pierre and I both instinctively moved to stand between Etienne and his mother, but managed to stop ourselves. Etienne wasn't a scared and lonely boy anymore, and she was hardly the most dangerous person around. Hello, Mother, Etienne called to her, pitching his voice carefully to reach her without the soldiers hearing him. I never asked, did Moti tell you we're in a battle because we stole a Russian rocket and trying to launch it into space? Yes, she said, that's why I came, isn't it? You think I was just in the neighborhood with a highly unusual child? Alright, he said indulgently, refusing to rise to the bait she couldn't stop herself throwing at him. I noticed Noodle, our muscular astronaut, sliding closer, and I gestured for him to join us if he could. He arranged cover fire and then darted over to us. Scoot is busy, he said. He told me to tell you another small issue we may have. Oh yeah, I said through gritted teeth. How many people had I already sent to their deaths today? The rocket isn't... well, it isn't finished. Being built, I mean. We need to do that too. Okay, we better wrap this one up because we're out of time for today, but we might only have one more episode to go, I would say. We're partway through Arc 14 out of 15. At most 2 more, I'd say. But we shall see. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.